From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. More than 122,000 people are being held in solitary confinement in various prisons in the United States. Jean Casella, director of the advocacy group Solitary Watch, called this a humanitarian crisis. According to a study released Tuesday, more than 6% of the incarcerated population is in solitary confinement in the country's multi-layered prison system. The figure does not include those held in immigration or juvenile facilities. However, it does include people who spend 22 hours or more per day in solitary confinement. The report's authors warn the numbers could be higher because they relied heavily on self-reporting. Discrimination cases against Muslims in New Jersey increased by 46% in 2022 compared to the previous year. According to a report by the Council on American Islamic Relations, 152 calls for help were received in 2022, up from 104 in 2021. The complaints involved various forms of discrimination. Of those cases, over 20% were related to employment, more than 17% from schools, and over 11% were related to hate and prejudice. But nationwide, another report released last month by CARE showed civil rights complaints by Muslim Americans were down 23%. Compared to more than 6,000 complaints in 2021, the Muslim advocacy group received over 5,100 complaints in 2022. The United States on Wednesday commemorated 1 year of the Uvalde, Texas school shooting in which 19 children were killed. President Joe Biden led the nation in remembering the victims. He said a year ago, Robb Elementary School in Uvalde became another battleground in America. An 18-year-old killer entered the school with an assault rifle, firing at least 100 rounds and killing 21 people. It is the third deadliest school shooting in the U.S. The president repeated his call for a ban on assault rifles and high-capacity magazines. He said firearms remain the leading cause of death for children in the U.S. Since Uvalde, the country has seen 650 mass shootings. Biden said this epidemic cannot end until Congress passes gun safety legislation. An opinion poll has found nearly 59% of Americans have an unfavorable view of the U.S. Supreme Court. That is down 6 percentage points from January, when 47% approved and 53% disapproved. The poll, conducted by Marquette Law School, indicates a continued decline in the court's approval. It found only 41% of Americans approve of the 9 justices. Over time, there have been many reports in the media about ethics and transparency issues facing the Supreme Court. The poll was conducted between May 8th and 18th. The U.S. has announced it will restrict travel permits for Bangladeshis involved in election rigging. The sanctions list includes current and former Bangladeshi officials, members of law enforcement agencies, the judiciary, and the opposition if they are involved in undermining the electoral process. Bangladesh's parliamentary elections are scheduled for January 2024. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said acts undermining the democratic electoral process include vote rigging, voter intimidation, and the use of violence to disrupt voting. He said holding free and fair elections is a responsibility of everyone, including voters, political parties, the government, and civil society. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said officials wanted to show the U.S. is closely monitoring the situation in Bangladesh. According to the State Department, Bangladeshi authorities were informed of the policy on May 3rd. A U.S. federal judge has sentenced a New Jersey man to 12 years in prison for links to the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Alexei Saab, a 46-year-old Lebanese-born software developer, had reportedly photographed American landmarks for possible attacks. He was arrested in 2019 on suspicion of ties to Hezbollah and labeled a highly skilled terrorist by prosecutors. They accused him of acting as a sleeper cell, waiting to take action in the event of a conflict with Iran. They said he took photographs and did research on weak points in the United States. Saab was convicted of receiving military training from Hezbollah, conspiring to commit marriage fraud, and making false statements. Prosecutors sought a 20-year prison sentence for Saab. Judge Paul G. Gardef said the defendant had cooperated with authorities. He said the facts of the case indicate Saab is no longer a danger to the community. The judge also said Saab had become a model prisoner by helping other inmates in New York City's federal prisons. Noam Chomsky questions the conscience of G20 nations. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Noam Chomsky, a well-known American scholar, has questioned the conscience of the G20 countries for attending a meeting in Indian-held Jammu and Kashmir. The G20, or Group of 20, is an intergovernmental forum that includes 19 countries and the European Union. It is currently led by India, which will host a summit in September. Ahead of the summit, India hosted a 3-day meeting of tourism working group representatives in Srinagar, the capital of Indian-held Kashmir. The meeting concluded on Wednesday. The meeting got off to a controversial start, with China, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey staying away. Egypt, which was invited as a guest country, also boycotted the event. Chomsky said in a video message that it was outrageous that the G20 is even holding a meeting, let alone a tourism meeting in Kashmir. He added that Kashmir has been one of the many victims and the suffering of which took even harsher forms in later years, most recently in 2019, with India's total destruction of the legal agreement. Chomsky described Kashmir as the most militarized region in the world. He said the population is imprisoned, tortured, disappeared, and denied even the most basic rights. The Indian newspaper The Telegraph reported that the G20 delegates could not travel to the famous tourist resorts of Gulmarg and Dashigam for security reasons. Many locals had their work cut out for them as they struggled through agonizing traffic jams to allow the visitors to travel. Unprecedented security arrangements were made to protect the meeting. Even schools along the route of the G20 delegates were closed for 3 days. 70 children died in the African country the Gambia last year after taking cough syrup sourced from India. Global experts have now confirmed that the drugs given to the children were contaminated. The children had died of acute kidney injury after taking the pediatric preparations. An Indian expert committee had previously said it had not found any contamination of the drug. According to the Indian news and opinion website The Wire, a causality assessment report prepared by international experts confirmed that the Indian medicine was contaminated. The contamination proved fatal to the children. Reports from 2 labs in France and Ghana confirmed the contamination of the medicine. In addition to these lab reports, the CDC and a parliamentary report from the Gambia also concluded that the children's deaths were linked to Indian medicine. The drug was manufactured by Maiden Pharmaceuticals. The drug's urea level was about 5 times higher than the ideal level. The creatinine level was about 100 times higher than the limits. High urea and creatinine levels had caused acute kidney disease in children. Previously, the World Health Organization had also refused to accept the findings of the Indian expert committee, which had exonerated the drug manufacturer. The Chinese army has called for the establishment of a buffer or non-patrol zone along the disputed border with India to avoid clashes between their armies. Indian newspaper The Telegraph reported an intelligence official of the paramilitary Indo-Tibetan Border Police said the Chinese army has called for the establishment of a 15 to 20 kilometer buffer zone. India had offered a buffer zone of 3 to 4 kilometers during talks between the two armies. India is concerned the Chinese are demanding this buffer zone within Indian claimed lines in the strategic Depsang Plain as a precondition for withdrawal. The Depsang Plain is an elevated gravel plain in the northwestern part of the disputed Aksai Chin area in the Ladakh region. The region was part of the Indian-controlled state of Jammu and Kashmir until 2019. This area remains a point of friction between the two militaries. Since the Chinese moved their positions forward in May 2020, there has been no withdrawal in this area. The Chinese army is already entrenched 18 kilometers inside the lines claimed by India. More than 1 million people have been displaced since fighting broke out in Sudan. The International Organization for Migration reports that they have been made homeless in less than 40 days since clashes erupted between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The organization said of the 1.36 million displaced, over 300,000 have found refuge in neighboring countries. More than 130,000 people have fled to Egypt, 80,000 to Chad, and more than 69,000 to South Sudan. According to local medics, at least 863 civilians have been killed and over 3,000 others injured since the conflict broke out on April 15th. Sudan has not had a functioning government since 2021, when the military deposed the interim government of Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok. The party of former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan appears to be disintegrating, as many senior leaders have left the party in recent days. Fawad Chaudhry, deputy chairman and spokesman of Khan's Tehreek-e-Insaf, parted ways with the party Wednesday and even quit politics. PTI Secretary General Asad Omar also resigned from his post. Following the May 9th outbreak of violence in the country, several senior leaders announced they were leaving the party, which the government has threatened to ban. Khan claimed party leaders were being forced to leave at gunpoint. He is currently fighting more than 100 court cases on charges including corruption, terrorism, and rioting that were all brought after his ouster from parliament last year. The former prime minister says the charges had been trumped up to drive him out of politics. Since his ouster, Khan has been campaigning for early parliamentary elections to be held later this year. In November, he narrowly escaped an assassination attempt at a rally. A popular Palestinian song returned to Spotify after its disappearance caused an online uproar. Singer Muhammad Asaf's song Ana Dammi Falastini, or My Blood is Palestinian, is back on the digital music streaming service. Its disappearance raised concerns about digital freedoms and the integrity of streaming services. Asaf's 2015 track was one of the most popular songs on the digital platform. It gained popularity in 2021 when Palestinians protested Israel's eviction of the village of Sheikh Jarrah. Asaf said he received an email from Spotify informing him his song had been removed because it, quote, incited against Israel, unquote. Spotify representatives, however, told the media the song had been removed at the request of the distributor. The Zionist advocacy group We Believe in Israel previously submitted a petition against the song. It managed to collect 4,000 signatures. Recently, Palestinian voices have been subjected to aggressive censorship in digital media platforms. Before we end today's news, I'd like to make a special request. It takes our team a combined 55 hours of work daily to produce this news for you. It is news with a unique perspective, and you will find it only here. Sound Vision is a not-for-profit organization which produces it, and like PBS and NPR, it depends on your donations. Please visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, or click on the link below to donate. Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.